Hey admins, how we doing out there? I'm gonna go over really quickly just some of the things I'm gonna talk about. I'm gonna try to put those up front in the video so you know throughout the video what I'll be talking about, and then in those email when I send the email out, I'm gonna put those in there as well because that way people who don't necessarily watch the video and retain the information have it in an email and vice versa. Some people say they learn better by watching the videos, and some say they learn better by reading them in the email. I will say in these communications to admins in general, this isn't information that you have to go back and specifically repeat back in your communications to your board. They're just helpful hints for you, reminders for you. Feel free to, of course, bring them up in meetings, but they're not required. But the Muse International communications are required for you to be reading in meetings. Especially, I'm having people right now that are not realizing that there's a possible position open, a territory manager in the north, because we aren't reading those communications. And I know sometimes I've had lodges say, well, there's a job opening in California. Well, no one here wants that job. Well, we don't know that. You never know who may be looking for a job somewhere. But this one's specifically in Indiana, so we need to make sure we're reading that and people know that there's a chance to put their name in the hat for consideration if they're considering, working for Moose International. The things I'm going to cover today, though, in this video are the Rocker Fund and Endowment, the All Stats and the AAA information that was sent out last week, a little bit about the mid-year agenda, um, the upcoming auction that will be at the mid-year, and then just briefly some information about the Indiana Gaming Commission training class that they've been putting on, the online one. So it is February, and so we are in the middle of the Rocker Fund, and all lodges are required to be doing this program. We sent out the links to print off the papers for the rockers, for the placards, the little placards that get filled out. Those should be up in the social quarters. We should be seeing those when we're walking in. The lodge officer should be the first one to step up to say, hey, I'll give $1, put my name on there. Because again, the officers set the tone, the example in the lodge that, people follow what they do. So we need to make sure we're doing that. I'm going into lodges and still not seeing the placards up, and I'm going in and I'm going to buy $1 one, but the lodge isn't doing it. It is required. Also, for the lodge to get credit for doing Rocker Fund, remember that's separate than the regular endowment you collect. So at the end of the month, when this month's over, in very early March, you'll be sending in a check for the Rocker Fund to Moose Charities, goes to the same place, but in the memo line we'll have Rocker Fund on it so you get credit for doing that. And that's all the money that you've raised from those placards. And we should make sure all the bartenders understand what this is for, what's going on. Again, your bartenders are your front line, should be educating your members along with your officers. Then you'll be sending all the money you collect for endowment for 9 o'clock prayers and anything else that will be to Moose Charities, but we'll have endowment written on the memo line. So there's two checks so we don't get them confused, going to the same place, but on the memo line have different projects that they're for. Also, just remember that the lodge is obligated to give endowment monthly, but when we're looking for Premier Lodge Awards, you have to uh, get to that level for a Premier Lodge, you have to make sure you've given 10 out of 12 months. Again, you're required to give every month, but they understand that, sometimes we make a mistake or we forget something or we don't get it in on time. And for those lodges that are trying to get that and forget, and maybe they've gotten towards the month and forgot to send that in early in the month, you can always go to the Moose Charities website, go to the upper right hand corner where it says donate, and go down. There's a section over there, it says endowment lodge, it says fraternal lodge giving or something like that, and you click on that, and then you'll put in your lodge number and can put that on a credit card, so you can uh, uh, get that in at the last minute. We just did that with the lodge this past month. It was the last day of the month and they hadn't given yet, they had kind of forgotten, so we went online and we put some money online so they had something right away, and then they sent the rest of the money later on. um, so all stats and AAA. So all stats, I sent that out to all lodges last week. If you did not get that, feel free to give me a holler, email me back and say, hey, I didn't get the all stat from my lodge. That was for your lodge as of February 1st. So you want to look at those numbers. We want to look at retention. And if we're at +1, we want to see where we're at on our AR payments. We should all be current. We want to look at where we've given to Moose Charities compared to the previous year. Again, when we're looking for Premier Lodge Award, we're looking at either being $1 more than the previous year and or hitting that per capita giving to Moose Charities, which changes every year. And this year, to hit that requirement, it's $6.51. So you're going to either hit one of those two programs. You want to either hit plus $1 over last year or hit that minimum giving amount per capita, and you'll be okay. Also on your AR, all in order to be considered for Premier Lodge, you have to owe less than you did last year. Again, we encourage everybody to be current. If you're paid off and current come April 1st with your AR payment by the end of the month being at 0 or being current and caught up, that's the same difference. It's same as owing less than the year before. Mid-year, oh, I'm sorry, in AAA. So our endowment, or I mean, our overall Moose Charities giving for the Indiana for the association is down quite a bit this year, but we still have lots of lodges that have not given their AAA payment yet. That goes into your overall Moose Charities givings and counts as part of that. So, along with the All Stats last week, we sent that copy of the AAA project. Now, some lodges are already given, and I'm sorry, that's the only copy I had is what the initial amount was. So only you and Moose International, Moose Charities only know right now what you've given so far. I don't. I could always find out by contacting them. We'll probably have an update at the end of the year where everybody's at the end of this 1 year. Again, the AAA project is just like the Centennial project before, and the MAC project as well. It's $1 per member per year over 3 years, so it's $3 per member, and we want you to break that up into payments, whether it's a monthly or a quarterly thing, or once a year and get your 1/3 out of the way this year, 1/3 next year, and the last third 3 years from now. That's perfectly fine. We want you to budget that way. We don't expect lodges to pay for it all at one time, but we still have lodges that haven't given anything yet, so we want to make sure that we're looking at that and working on that. The mid-year agenda. So I've been getting lots of Facebook comments to the association and emails, where's the agenda, what's happening. We don't normally give out the full agenda. That's never really been anything done in the past. There's usually that abbreviated agenda. I understand I've got quite a few new administrators and officers in lodges, so I will explain this. The process doesn't usually change too much. Mid-year is mostly workshops and learning and fellowship, whereas the fall state convention is mostly business meetings and voting on things. So they're a little bit different, but the weekend really never changes. It's normally Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday morning. Mid-year doesn't really change. There was one pseudo change after we became One Moose a couple years ago, but at Friday morning there's a Moose Legion session and a Women of the Moose session in the morning, and then we go right into general sessions. There'll be some workshops after that, and then usually in that evening there's something fellowship-wise. Right now, one of the changes that has happened this year for mid-year is the auction has been moved to Sunday morning because we want to give members more time to go into the district hospitality rooms and socialize a little bit more and have more fellowship. We think you learn a lot going into those hospitality rooms and having fun just as much as you do going to some workshops. But again, those sessions, the way that the weekend is set up doesn't usually change. The reason why we don't usually give out the full agenda, because on some of those workshops we may still be doing some tweaking in what rooms certain things may be in, or who's giving a workshop, so that stuff hasn't been given out yet. So that's why there's only the abbreviated agenda. I get a lot of new administrators and presidents asking when they have to be there. Throughout that week from Friday morning to Sunday morning, you can be there anytime you'd like. Of course, we encourage you to be there the whole time, but we understand that that's not possible for everybody. But in order for the lodge to get credit, a member has to be at one of those actual sessions. So when you look at those agendas, you'll see there's session 1, session 2, session 3. Those are actual general membership meetings, and that's when we do roll call. You have to be at one of those to get credit. So again, if you know, if you can make Friday but you can't make Saturday, or you're working Friday, you can make Saturday. That's fine as long as you're at one of those sessions. Even Sunday morning, that early morning session after breakfast is considered a session, and you can get credit for being there if you've not been there on Friday or Saturday. Um, I already kind of commented about the auction a little bit. So remember, lodges, chapters, and Moose Legion should be coming up with something to bring to auction off for the Capitals project. The auction may be changing in general. That's one of the reasons why it's been moved to Sunday morning, which is where it originally was. There was a reason why it was originally moved to Saturday. Now they're moving it to Sunday, and we may come up with a different project to replace it. But again, people always ask what to put into those for the auction. You know, lots of lodges go out and get something donated locally. You know, there's lots of those liquor baskets. Most of you have probably been to one of those auctions before and kind of seen you just have to bring something. Now, people are usually asking where to drop that off, and that's always a big question. At the registration table, usually if you ask them when you bring something in, they'll be able to tell you, because sometimes it's that room right next to the registration table. There's a little room there. This last time they actually had stuff for remodeling the hotel that was stuck in there, so we had to go down to one of those director rows room, which is further down the hallway going back towards the lobby. But just ask somebody at the registration table. They'll be able to tell you where to stick that stuff. And last but very briefly, so I went through the online Indiana Charity Gaming seminar they had this past week. I was in Brazil. Thank you very much, guys, for setting up the cameras, and there were several of us that sat around and watched that. There wasn't anything major new in those for people that have watched them before, but the reason why I do want to bring it up is I want people to make sure they understand that the ESR forms, the event summary forms, did change last year. So you may want to go online and get the newer version, because it does look a little bit different. And again, you can print up the hard copy and fill those out, or there is the electronic version, which you can keep on. One thing that they absolutely reiterated several times is that ESR forms, those event summary reports, they are required. You have to have those on file when they come in. They're going to ask. So if you have poll tabs, they want to see that page filled out. If you have bingo, that's in that. It's the very first page. They want to see that filled out. You have to have those. Again, I will say those are required. And there have been some lodges in the past that they made up their own sort of form to follow up, and the IGC was considering that okay. They're being very clear. Those homemade forms are not okay. If you have that for your own trekking, that's fine, but those ESR forms have to be filled out. And I'm only saying it one more time, it's required, because Mr. Mark Mason repeated it several times that they are required. Also, when signing up for that class, originally they said you had to make sure you had the Microsoft Teams program downloaded to your computer. That's what I did, but actually that was inaccurate. You were able to use it, that's perfectly fine. But when they send out the link for the actual video conference that comes out from Mark Mason, like the day or two before the session happens, it sends you a link, and you can actually go on through or send you through a browser, and then your browser you can click on and use that. So you don't actually have to download that program to the computer. Okay, I spent way too much time. It was 13, almost 14 minutes. You guys have a good week. We'll see you around. Take care. Bye.